We just wrapped up all the insulation in our build, and before we get to drywall, there's one more big step we are going to be doing around the whole interior of the house, and that is a vapor control layer or a secondary air barrier, whatever you want to call it. In this video, we'll walk through all of the various details and products and steps we're going to be using for that, and hopefully you can apply some of that to the air sealing on your future build. The goal is to form an airtight envelope around the upstairs living space to maximize comfort and the effectiveness of our heat pump, ERV, and dehumidifier. This means SIGA on the garage ceiling, second floor exterior walls, and second floor ceilings. Any extra we will use up on the first floor exterior walls. Now ideally, you'd want this to be a perfectly continuous envelope, but since this wasn't in the original plan, we did not detail these areas at the rim joist for this. There are ways to do this if it's planned from the start, but our zip sheathing and attic subfloor will have to suffice in our case. Let's talk about the main component of our air sealing layer, and that is Majrex 200. This is a product made by a Swiss company called SIGA. We had never heard of this product until after we started building, so this was not in the original plans at all. But through social media, we learned about it, saw a lot of other high-performance builders using it, and thought, hey, this might be a good idea to incorporate. So we reached out to SIGA. They were willing to help us out with some of the material, and we figured it would be a good idea to install before we have sheetrock, because you can't do it afterwards. Now, this is a vapor control layer, and what's special about SIGA as compared to something like maybe the brown craft paper on fiberglass batt insulation is this only lets vapor through one direction. The idea is you apply this to your exterior walls. It will not let vapor or water into your walls, but it will allow the walls to dry out should there be any vapor that condenses or any other moisture source that comes inside the walls. It essentially protects your wall assembly from the effects of moisture, which especially in northern climates is important because it gets cold enough out that any water vapor in the wall can condense and turn into actual water droplets in cold weather. Those will eventually grow into mold and potentially even rot that could cause structural damage to your walls. There's a couple other components to this system. We'll be using the Twinette tape. It's a very sticky double-sided tape that you apply to the ceiling joists and wall studs in order to get a good smooth application of this. And then all of the overlapping seams, the corners, and the joints with the floor and our top plates will be sealed with Reson tape. That is their lime green acrylic-backed polyethylene tape. Also, some of the stickiest tape I've ever worked with. I thought zip tape was sticky. Reson is a whole new different level. Now, I should mention this is actually a secondary air barrier. The first and primary air barrier is our zip sheathing, the green epoxy coating on those panels, along with the black acrylic tape that covers all the seams of the panels. So that by itself forms a pretty darn good air barrier. However, we don't have anything on the ceiling. So we have a ventilated attic, rock wool insulation that is totally vapor open, and so I especially wanted to put this on our ventilated attic ceiling. In some of the areas where we have cathedral slope ceilings as well, I thought it would add some extra protection to that assembly. Cathedral ceilings are notoriously tough to properly manage moisture, so this product makes that a lot safer. We'll be running a whole house dehumidifier and a couple other things that I really feel will benefit the longevity of the building, but I think this is a great investment nonetheless. Speaking of investment, I should mention that this is not cheap material. It's actually quite expensive. If you crunch the numbers, it's actually more expensive than the drywall that is going on top of it. But if you live in a northern climate that requires a vapor barrier anyway, and you're after a really airtight, high-performance house, it's a detail I definitely would consider. In the grand scheme of things, it probably is not going to cost more than our countertops, and it's a heck of a lot easier to replace countertops down in the future than, you know, a wall assembly that might have mold problems. So like we're trying to do with the rest of the project, getting the shell right is the most important thing to us. The really expensive aesthetic features that come down the line are not quite as important. We still want to have a nice looking interior and everything, but details like this are a little bit extra money up front, but can net you more energy efficiency and comfort down the line, which is important to us. The last piece of the air sealing puzzle will be around windows and doors. I am going to fill this gap with some window and door foam after I trim these shims off, and then I'll be using the Fentrum IS20 tape, also a SIGA product, that bonds to the face frame of the window and the framing to create an airtight AIRTIGHT perimeter seal around the window. What I like about that, rather than just the foam, is that it covers the shims too. The foam, you're always trying to get in between the shims, or if you're using backer rod and caulk, that's another way to do it. But you can never really seal between the stacked shims, especially in this case with these horseshoe composite shims. So the Fentrum tape makes it completely continuous all the way around, and I like that detail. Electric outlets and light junction boxes are also another notorious offender for air leakage. So for any of the boxes that were up in the ceiling or on exterior walls, we went around before installation and sealed all of the wire entrances and any of the knockouts that had kind of some cracks around them with Big Stretch. It's a flexible sealant. It'll allow us to maneuver those wires in the future, and it should provide another level of air sealing so that there's no leakage out of those boxes. Can lights are another struggle of air sealing. We are using all halo canless downlights, so they don't actually have the big metal box that goes up in the attic. That helps a lot by itself. There is a small gasket around that can, but we still wanted to keep our SIGA continuous. I talked more about this in the ceiling insulation video, but we pre-installed 5-sided boxes made from SIGA, taped with Reson, up into the rafters where all of our can lights are going to be, put a piece of rock wool in to fill them now, and we'll be taping those to the main ceiling layer when that is applied. That way the ceiling layer stays continuous even where there are can lights where we do have to fit a driver and the can itself. We have sloped cans that are not just a flat 1/2 inch thick can. They do have a bit of a housing so that the can can actually slope, so we had to accommodate for that as well. That is why we made those SIGA boxes. Similar story for our fire sprinkler system. I custom made these zip and wood boxes that's sealed with Lexel with the pipe coming into it, if you can see very closely there. And that is essentially an airtight box around the fire sprinkler. The Majrex will tape to the edges of that box, and that'll be another sealed recess for the sprinkler because the sprinkler does need to access room air for it to work properly. Here's a little flashback to before attic installation when we were actually making the 5-sided boxes in case you want to copy this detail.
Here's my little SIGA box workstation. We find that when we are doing repetitive tasks, it's best to do it in assembly line fashion. So basically breaking down each individual step and then figuring out how we can be the most efficient. So the first step I like to do is cut all of the tape that I will be using. The only portion of the box that's taped are the corners. So I cut them all to length, and then I am pre-bending them and then cutting a little slit in the bottom side to make it really easy to get a nice tight corner whenever I am putting these on the corner of the boxes. So my first step is doing the tape. Then I like to do about 4 boxes at a time. So I roll out the SIGA. We put this piece of plywood on 2 sawhorses to make it a little bit easier. We have 2 different templates that I can use as a base to get started. Some have custom measurements, so I use this as a guidance, and then I change the measurements based on this, but a lot of them were the same exact size, so having a cardboard template really helped with the process. This outlines the exact size that I need to cut things to, and then it also outlines where I need to fold. I put the template on the SIGA, outlined it, cut it out, marked where I needed to fold, and then I pre-fold the entire box and then just tape it. We added this 2x6 at the end of our little workstation, and this allows me to put the corner of the box tightly on this while I'm taping. This is just one of those things where it makes it a lot easier than just trying to tape it in mid-air. We are constantly trying to make things a little bit more efficient, and this worked out well. I have 2 of these cut out, and these are 2 unique sizes. So this wasn't using a template. I had to do some custom measurements. So I made sure to mark them accordingly so that Alex knows where to hang them. He made a diagram of all of the can lights and exactly where each one of these is going to go. So once I have it cut, this is whenever I start folding it into a box. I'm going to fold the main sides up, and then we have a little top flange that I fold back. I use this squeegee to get a tighter edge. This just makes it easier to handle. These little tabs here on the side are just here to help me with the taping. I'll show you that when we get to that step, but I also fold these in. I have one of these folded. I typically like to fold any that I have cut first and then do all the taping at once. I like to peel it back and get it started. I just kind of fold that down, put the corner here, and I do this for all 4 pieces of tape. Then I take my box and I find where my creases are and I wedge the corner on the 2x6. You can see how the flap folds over, and this helps me with the taping portion. And when I grab my piece of tape, I've accounted for the fact that my seam is off-centered by how I folded the tape and where I cut the tape. Having this slit in the tape allows me to get a tight corner, so I can push down the side of the tape and kind of swing this over. This isn't the best example. It depends on how accurate I get that slit, but you can see that there's no way that there's going to be any air leakage right here at this corner.
All right, show off the finished product.
Just like that.
Beautiful.
We have a box, and there's the little flanges too, so you can see how this is going to connect to the overall system with these flanges.
Look at that. Fantastic job.
Woo!
She is too good. Making them is the hard and more tedious part. Installing them, which is my job, is a little bit easier. First things first, snip my little wire loop here for the can light. That's so I can slit 2 different holes in the side of the box and have 1 wire come through each. As Matt Reisinger always has said, 1 thing, 1 hole. So I'm gonna seal those up individually as they come through the box. Give her a little test fit. See where I gotta cut my wires. My laser is set up where this can is supposed to go. Where's my laser at? Bet my gloves are blocking it. Sure are. Yeah, there we go. So, is that right? That can't be right. It's gonna have to scoot in a little bit, I guess. I'll have to adjust this guy in a little bit, and I'll have to do the same on the other side, actually, so it kind of works out. Not really sure why we decided to put the light there, but hindsight's 20/20. I'm just sort of eyeballing a natural point that the wire would come through the side of the box while keeping the box centered on my green laser. Just a couple staples. I can't remember if I mentioned it, but these are sized at 5.5 inches deep so that a bat of R23 fits in there perfectly at the perfect thickness. The very first full piece of SIGA to put up was actually in the utility room. This had to be done so we could hang drywall, finish, and paint this section of ceiling before blocking it off with the rest of the ductwork. This is an absolute carpentry challenge of a lifetime because of all these pipes. There's like, I think there's like 17 ceiling penetrations in this utility room between the ducts, extra conduits, wires. It's just so many different holes and they're all sort of randomly placed, seemingly. So it's tough to cut around that, but we're doing it 1 piece at a time. I did the easy piece first that has no cuts in it, and then I'll do the second piece kind of in the middle with these holes cut out of it, and then we'll tackle the last bit. But it's just slow and steady going, but if we want a complete install of the Majrex, we got to tackle this utility room ceiling. So this has kind of been a task I've been dreading, doing the ceiling above this HVAC stuff. Those kind of tasks exist all throughout these projects where it's like some parts are really fun and some parts are just not so fun. This is one that's just kind of tedious and not so fun, but we got to get it done. The first piece of SIGA on the ceiling is up, and wow, that was a challenge, cutting around all those pipes. Elena's putting the last little bit of tape on. She has been the professional pipe taper, and she's doing a great job. Look at some of these joints. Those things are tight. That's about as tight as you can get around a cylinder coming through a flat ceiling. I will definitely say that was one of the more difficult things we've had to do on this build as far as the measuring and marking and cutting and installing, because of this air handler. I couldn't really have sequenced it a whole lot differently. I guess we could have left the trunk down, left the big return trunk down, and just stubbed the return branches down first, similar to what we're doing with the supply trunk where we haven't mounted it yet. If we had, that would really have made taping in that back corner almost impossible. But we saved just enough room without the supply trunk to be able to pull it off. So at the edges and the corners where the SIGA meets the framing, we taped to the top plate just above where our plywood recess is. We got about 3/4 inch there for the 5/8 inch drywall to sit in. And so we were able to tape just to that edge. That corner is probably the worst example of taping because of this giant air handler and riser here. I could just barely get my arms all the way back in that corner. So that's not absolutely ideal, but that's just the realities of construction and doing some of the specialty work. This is the technique Elena's using for getting her pipe tapes done. Sort of splitting the backing. That way she can apply just that lower piece of the backing, getting that right, setting it just about 5/8 inch so we're not going to see green tape beneath the edge of the sheetrock once it's up, and then the rest of the backing comes afterwards. This is a very tough access area. One thing to note is I did put some blocking strips in around each of the duct penetrations because I knew I'd be splitting the drywall there. You can kind of see them through the SIGA. Those are just 1x3s and 1x4s with some pocket screws holding them flush with the bottom of the I-joist, and that's just to give me a little bit of wood to screw drywall screws into. I did the same thing at the corner here with the 1x4. I just put screws in through the top into my top plate, and that is providing us an edge to both tape the SIGA to, but also put drywall screws into to keep the corner secure. The first large pieces we did were on the garage ceiling to get our feet wet and figure out the best techniques for unrolling straight and flat. Once you stick the Majrex to that twinette tape, it really does not want to move again. This is absolutely a two-person job with one person supporting the roll while the other keeps one edge straight as it unrolls. Once we got the hang of it, it actually went pretty quickly.
The first step in installing the Majrex on the garage ceiling is putting this twinette tape on the flanges of the I-joist. This is like a very, very super sticky double-sided tape. So we have come up with a pretty good technique to get it done quickly, and we'll show you what that looks like.
Okay. I feel like this is like a high school project.
I just need to film you talking. Okay, so are you? Is it filming?
I think so. This is recording.
I can't. That's so funny. Okay, so to apply the tape, we found that it's really helpful to basically tack one end, and then you just loosely pull it, tack it with your finger, and then you come back with your little squeegee and smooth the tape out, apply some pressure, and that just makes sure that it's adhered properly.
You're on.
You're on. When you get to the edge or as far as you can reach, you just cut the tape. Make sure you go back with that squeegee. And then when we are ready to actually apply the Majrex, we will go through and peel off the other side of the tape. It'll be a sticky tape that's exposed, and that's what will hold up the SIGA Majrex while we are mounting it. This actually works out perfect for our timing, but the drywall was delivered a couple weeks ago, so we are able to stand on this as if it's a scaffold and reach up to the ceiling, which is basically covering the entire garage. And then what we can't get to with the drywall, we are using our scaffold. This makes it go a lot quicker. When we applied this first piece of Majrex that you see here, we actually just bridged the gap between the two pieces of drywall with this scaffold. We'll end up doing the same thing when we get to this section here.
To measure out these long runs of SIGA, this is the secret weapon, a laser tape measure. Just projects this little red dot and gives a precise reading down to the 32nd of an inch if you want to go that precise for how far away the dot is from the back of this little gadget. And this thing has already been a lifesaver for just a couple runs where this is almost 40 foot wide. The garage is a 40 by 36 foot building. So these long runs, it is dang near impossible to pull an actual physical tape measure, even when you got two people. It's a real pain. So this thing makes it a breeze with a single person. I'm just gonna hold it up to the edge of this LVL here. And if you look all the way over, you can see the red dot on that top plate. And I'm reading 35 foot 1 inch. So that's the length of our SIGA. We'll probably give a couple extra inches just for tolerance sake, but Yeah, it was as easy as that. This thing is less than 50 bucks. We'll throw a link in the description. Definitely a handy tool. Bought it, well, actually it was gifted by Mark, who's here, he's helping us. Christmas gift this year for trim and baseboard, for measuring out, you know, long runs of baseboard, but finding new uses for it already. I wish I grew up learning metric units, honestly, like in everyday use, because it makes way more sense. There's literally no arguing that at all. I'm measuring to the 12 foot and then roll that back towards me. We're gonna translate the whole thing back and then re-roll it out again. Mark out another 12 foot. Just like wrapping paper.
We are now upstairs and we are going to start in the main living room. The upstairs is going to be a little bit more challenging to put the SIGA on the ceiling specifically. We have a lot of angles and places where we're changing direction, so it will be interesting to try it up here in comparison to in the garage where we had a completely flat ceiling. Here's a closer look at the twinette tape. So it's on this nice little skinny roll. You center this on the stud or the joist, and then when you peel it off, there is this super sticky tape on the other side, and this sticks to the wall. And then when you are ready to apply the Majrex, you peel back this white tape and this clear sticky stays on the wall, and then that's what you apply the Majrex to. We have some extra help today. My dad and Shane are here helping us out. It's not all the time that we have someone here helping, so hopefully this goes a bit quicker because we will have 3 of us working on it rather than just 2. To clarify the 3 instead of 4, Alex will be supervising and won't be doing any work. No, I'm just kidding, but he's going to be working on something else while we continue on the SIGA. So once the tape is applied, we use this little squeegee to just make sure that it's properly adhered to the joist. This is the first time we've moved the scaffold upstairs. This is gonna make doing the ceiling a lot easier. So I'm gonna hop up here on the scaffold and my dad is going to roll me around as I apply the tape. The first room we are doing in the upstairs area is the pantry. We figured we'll get this wall done so that we can then store some of our tools and things in there, and then it'll be kind of out of the way. We already put up 2 pieces of the Majrex, and for this next one, you can see we still have a portion of the slanted ceiling, and then we're gonna run into the wall. So our plan is to run down the ceiling and then wrap around the wall, and then basically route out the door using a knife. I'm gonna start on that side. Okay, I'm just getting that initial stick there. I like this technique a little bit better, where you line it up, get it stuck everywhere slightly, and then continue down. Because then you know you're pretty straight. Okay, so now we gotta get, when we get to this corner, yeah, we gotta make sure we're as tight as possible. Alex said the squeegee works well.
On the floor.
We finished the twinette on the ceiling and then most of the walls in this big living space. So now we are going around and peeling off that white layer, which then leaves the sticky tape, and we are cutting the Majrex and we're going to start hanging. The first place we are hanging the Majrex is going to be on this back wall here. We have a little bit of an angled ceiling, so it's going to kind of bend up over, and then the part where we overlap the two pieces of Majrex is going to be about a foot into the ceiling. Anywhere there is a crease like that, we have to make sure it's a tight crease to make sure that the drywallers do not have trouble getting the drywall flat up against the ceiling. That's where we might have a risk of them coming through with a knife and cutting it. We obviously are going to be here on site when the drywallers are here, and we're going to tell them that they cannot do that. But just in case, we are going to try to make sure that we have really, really tight seams anywhere where we have a ceiling hitting a wall or anywhere there is a seam in the ceiling. This works pretty well. Shane is starting the tape on a lot of these, and then he just lets them hang down, and then I can just grab it from here on the ground and untape things. Look, I can do double time. I like that. That was a good technique. One issue we have is when we are rolling this out over large spans, we have a tendency to pull away from the wall. You can see it here along this top wall. Our plan is to continue running the Majrex up from the wall and onto the ceiling, so this isn't a big issue here, but we just want to make sure that we're not continuing that problem on the rest of the ceiling. That's definitely one thing that we've had challenges with and we'll work to get better on as we go on.
Initially, Elena was cutting out for the full can light and sprinkler boxes, but decided that was taking too long, so she switched to random smaller holes for me to come back and finish later. All right, we're making some progress. This is awesome. I haven't had to do any of it, which is the best part.
Lazy.
Got our super high paid workers here taking care of all the hard stuff on the ceiling. This is good though.
They're working overtime.
Getting the beginnings of the SIGA boxes cut out for where our can lights are going to go. You can kind of see the outline. Then those flaps, those flanges will get taped to the flat ceiling and we'll have a continuous layer there. The first one is already done actually, and I'm going to come back and put a little seal around the wires coming into the box with some Reson 100 that's an extra wide split backing tape.
So our process for this is we are basically really focusing on aligning our one edge to the dotted line on the Majrex. The Majrex has a dotted line on it to indicate how much you need to overlap. So that's what we focus on, and that helps us stay straight as we unroll things. We had a little bit of an issue on the first one and we've learned since then, and so this is kind of the process that we're following. We kind of just get it started on the one side, and this allows us to focus on just keeping it straight, and then we come back and finish taping it after.
Probably the hardest ceiling to do was in the bathroom where there was a 1-foot soffit built down. To keep the layer continuous with the rest, the SIGA had to go up on the main ceiling joist. I'm working in this little laundry closet right now. Quick tip on the twinette, which is totally credited to Elena's dad. I cannot peel this stuff with my fingers. Like, I guess I can. Even with fingernails, it is really difficult to get underneath that, especially if you're not coming from a straight cut where I just had slit this thing. Elena's dad, Mark, showed me that if you just take the tip of the knife, just lightly stab it into that backing and give it a little twist, it pops the backing right free, and then you can actually grab it. That is an absolute game changer for getting this backing off when the twinette is on the ceiling especially. It's really tough to like get up there and just barely pinpoint it with your fingernails to get just the backing and not the rest of the tape. Although the tape is some of the stickiest tape I have ever experienced. It's almost like a glue tape, but you do not want to accidentally touch the Majrex to this where you don't want it, because it does not want to let go. It's like immediate, and you barely have to put any pressure on it at all. Once you actually squeegee over it or roll over it to activate the pressure sensitive adhesive, it might as well be locked on there. Like, you could probably put framing material on this and it would hold a good sized shelf with this double-sided tape. I don't know what SIGA is putting in their glue, but it's something special. I cut this piece to fit right in this little cavity, and then I'm going to use the Reson 100 split backing tape to tape to the jambs. The official right way to do this was, before we framed all the interior walls, to put a flap of Majrex behind this so that I could tape right to SIGA, but did not plan that far ahead because this was not in the plans originally. Gotta be very careful where you put this. It is not going to move once you activate some of that adhesive. Squeegees are really your best friend. Just getting everything nice and flat, smooth. Where possible, if you have it all aligned, start at the middle and work your way out so that there's minimal bubbles or wrinkles. On long runs, you can roll the tape out and remove the backer at the same time, but for shorter joints, I usually cut the tape to length first, then gradually remove the backing and adhered it starting at one end. Generally, you'd only see a vapor barrier in northern climates that actually require it because of how cold it gets in the winter. You can actually move the dew point inside the wall, and any vapor that's in the wall will condense into water and cause mold and rot. In warmer climates, vapor barriers are discouraged typically because of the fact that they can actually trap hot, humid air that's just present in the climate, and that hot, humid air is then trapped in the wall assembly and it just molds and rots, not because it's condensed from cold air, but it's just a warmer climate with more moisture in the air. The beauty of this stuff is you can use it in virtually any climate, as far as I know. I don't think there's any downside to using it in any climate. And it eliminates that risk of moisture being trapped in the wall because it can breathe out, but it still gives you the benefit of not allowing moisture into the wall in the first place, be it from high indoor humidity, or if you just have the doors and windows open in the summer, that sort of thing. I'm making a little slice right at 59 inches, which is the length of the roll, and that will let me just peel off the bottom bit of twinette for one roll and serve as a guide for when I go to align the thing. I can just put it right at the joint of my tape there, and I'll know I have it straight. I don't think I mentioned it, but drywall literally starts tomorrow. We got a crew of 8 guys showing up, so we need to get this done. It's like 5:30 in the evening right now. Luckily, Elena's dad has come in from out of town to help us, and it's been really, truly a team effort. We would never have gotten it done without both his and Shane's help yesterday. Well, we're not done yet. I'm gonna say we're gonna get it done. Let's put it like that. We've got probably 80% of it up on the walls and ceilings. Up here right now, we've got the garage ceiling pretty much all done except for a couple tiny pieces. So we're definitely in the home stretch. There's still quite a few details yet to go through the end of this SIGA install, so I'm going to cover those in a part 2 video. Stay tuned to see whether we can wrap it up before the drywall crew arrives. We pulled an all-nighter